begin.
Welcome, I am Brother Max, and today is October 6th, 2025. You know what that means? It is day 6 of the 31 Days of Fright horror movie project, year 13, and Tusk is still going strong 6 days in. And yesterday, if you've been keeping up with my videos, yesterday was a very audio-heavy themed episode where I talked about watching the movie, listening to the podcast, listening to the audio commentary. So what if today you cut all the sound, watched it on mute? I know it's a very high concept, but it actually proved to be really fun and difficult at times. But before I really dive deep, I need you to do a few things like click and subscribe, hit the bell, leave a like, and leave a comment for sure. I've been enjoying reading your comments. I will get to everyone's comments, I promise. I'm just a little slow. I have a kid now and a bunch of other things going on. So like, I promise I will get to everyone's videos and comments as soon as I possibly can. And speaking of other videos, please go show some love with just what I asked of you to do for me. Do the 13th Wolfman. You got Moods, Double Shot J, Jennifer Tochi, Echo, Professor Macabro. Then you got people like Bones and Hobbs and a slew of others who are also keeping the spooky season alive. So go show them some much needed love as well. So, man, I really need a bit of a refreshment here. I'm still drinking my Jason Verse Angry Orchard Tall Boy here, and it's gone sour, but I'm power through it because I'm not one to be wasting money, so I will drink this to every last drop. Oh man, it's pretty sour. I'm not gonna lie on that one. Oh man. Okay. Anyways, as I mentioned, I watched this movie on mute with some difficulty and with some surprising moments as well, because I know there's movies where you can isolate the score, you know, it's just music in the background, where this movie I watched completely on mute. No sound, no nothing, no music, no nothing, just with the hum of my fan in the corner, my fat cats dropping off tables and chairs, and you can hear it echo down here really well because it's just, they're that fat. And I live in a pretty old house, so like the house, it just creaks and stuff throughout the night, and it just shifting and all that fun stuff. It's just like just normal house stuff, and or just things that you would normally hear because you're watching TV, you're playing a game. It's like, oh, okay, like, wow. And like, I think I also had the AC on. It's hot here in Indiana right now for being October, so we have our AC on just to kind of like keep it cool for the most part. But yeah, with all that kind of stuff going on, it still was easy to watch the movie on mute. But there is a few scenes in this movie where I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was kind of difficult to watch because Kevin Smith is a very dialogue-heavy director. It's one of his really like motifs. You know, his repertoire of writing dialogue is like one of his strongest suits. Okay. And it's just like, but there's a couple of scenes where it's like, oh, your mind really begins to wonder. It's just a couple of dialogue scenes, nothing really too major, but it's just like, but even with them being dialogue scenes, you do see them kind of like body language, and they move around. They're like looking at one another, like, especially there's one particular scene with the private detective, Genesis Rodriguez and Haley Joel Osment's character. They're looking at each other, and they're looking forward, and like they're sliding stuff across the table, and it's a very interesting scene anyways, but it's also kind of hard to watch without the proper dialogue because your mind will begin to wander. And there's another scene like that as well where the private detective is also talking to Howard Howe. He's kind of caught up to him at this point a little bit, but the detective is still kind of like, I don't know if this is him or not, because Howard Howe has kind of put on like a disguise, a facade of kind of someone who has some he has some mental issues. Okay, but this is obviously fake because he's really good at like hiding his true intentions. Because at the beginning of this movie, he was in a wheelchair, and obviously by the end of the movie, he's standing up, and like he uses that as a disarming device. He disarms the other person to kind of into a false sense of like, like, oh, he has some like he's mentally handicapped or he's physically handicapped. Like he's kind of using these kind of as a way to deter people from seeing his true self. But anyways, but then there's moments where you watch the movie and on mute, it's like, holy crap, this is so much fun. I'm watching it in color, okay? I'm not watching it in black and white, but that would be a totally different experience as well. But I'm actually watching it as it was normally intended, in color. I had to throw that out there. But there's two scenes in particular as well, like that where it really truly stands out watching in mute. One of them is actually a dialogue scene. There's a scene where Justin Long's character he's been drugged and he's sitting at the end of the table and he can't get out of a wheelchair, and you got Howard Howe at the other end of this long table, kind of talking to him, and there's a moment where he reveals his true self. He can walk this entire time. Spoiler. You clearly see his face kind of widen, and Howard Howe just like, I'm loving this. I'm loving every bit of this. And it's such a great scene. And then the other scene in particular is when he starts, basically sequences, I should say, when he's finally in full walrus makeup and suit, and he's in that area of his house. It's pretty intense because like there's a shift in camera movement, there's a shift in editing, there's a shift in all kinds of other stuff, which makes it more engaging, and just the environment itself and everything like so. But my main concern was how easy was this movie to follow on mute. Yes, I kind of wish I was able to watch this movie for the first time like that and see if I could pick up the context clues and stuff like that. It's really easy to pick up the movie. It really is. Like, you understand, like, hey, this guy's a podcast, and then he's going to go interview somebody, and it fails, and he ends up trying another story, and then it backfires on him, okay? And then he ends up getting turned into a walrus and whatnot, and so that's that. But the really fun scene that I really, 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 really liked was the ending on mute, because you can clearly, it's once again, Genesis Rodriguez and Haley Joel Osment show up to this place, and they have a kind of a mystery package, and then they're just talking. You're trying to gauge you're trying to remember what they've been saying, and then you see like a little habitat for a walrus out in the open, and you see walrus come out, still in walrus garb and everything. And so after the events of the movie, he hasn't been able to like go back to being normal walrus. And they throw him the fish, and then you see a little tear, and it's like, it was fun seeing that scene on mute. It was just like, I think that scene would have been great just with music and without. So yeah. So that's really all I have to say about this movie. Like I mentioned, it was fun to watch on mute, and there was moments where it was kind of difficult, where my mind began to wander in a few scenes. But like when it's on point, when the scenes where you were engaged, so I know he kind of talks bad about this movie, like from the guy who made Tusk, but it's like, I've been talking about it for 6 days. And so obviously this movie has something to offer more than just a man getting turned into a walrus. And so yeah, that's all I have to say. And that's where I'm going to end it. Everyone stay spooky, be safe, and thank you.